Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Senate Republicans started debate on getting the SAVE Act across the finish line, but there appears to be much more work to be done. We have an update on exactly where we stand with that today. The House Oversight Committee has issued a subpoena to Attorney General Pam Bondi, ordering her to testify over, quote, possible mismanagement of the investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and all the files related to him. An organization in Illinois is setting up a pilot program that they hope will become a permanent fixture that will offer a guaranteed income that will be immigrant inclusive. Now, let me interpret that for you. They want to offer illegals a guaranteed income for life. Will this not be a magnet for illegals? And South Carolina senators have moved to fire the interim director of the state's public health department, resuming a push from last year to oust the agency head over concerns about his response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we have another candidate for governor in South Carolina. Ron Reddy, founder of Doge SC, threw his hat in the ring this week.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
U.S. Senate started the debate on the SAVE Act last night. There's nothing to suggest that Republicans have the necessary votes to pass it. But nonetheless, debate started. Senator Mike Lee described a scenario of where large numbers of illegals have been able to get driver's licenses and register to vote at the same time, and what a problem this has created.
Even if you were starting from the assumption that none of this ever happens, nobody ever has registered to vote in the past, who was not a citizen or never had voted in any election, who was not a citizen. That is an assumption contrary to fact. But even if you were to reach that conclusion, you play this forward, and this could and ultimately will lead to a whole lot of mischief when you put all of those factors into the mix, especially when you consider what happened between 2021 and 2025, on or about, let's say January 20th, 2020, through to January 20th, 2025, there were policies in place in this country that led to relatively open borders, you might say, in which an estimated 10 to 15 million people entered this country unlawfully, with many of them here to this day. Some people have estimated that the total population of non-citizens inside the United States today stands in the neighborhood of around 30 million people. That is a lot of people. A lot of people who in most states could apply for and receive a driver's license, particularly if they live in some states more than others. And all they have to do is walk into a DMV, apply for a driver's license, check a box saying, yes, I would like, while applying for my driver's license, simultaneously to register to vote. And all that remains after that is you sign your name. And by signing your name, you're certifying that you're entitled to register to vote, that you're a citizen and not under any kind of legal impediment from voting. And that is done. So even if you are someone who assumes, contrary to fact, and contrary to more facts that I believe will be coming out in greater detail in the coming days and weeks, even if you're someone who believes that this does not happen, that people don't register to vote if they are not citizens of this country, this still would be a trend, given all of the circumstances that I've just outlined, all the things that have happened since the NVRA became law of the land back in 1993. This is something that we should all very much worry about. This should concern us greatly, because you don't want people voting in a system in which they're not entitled to vote.
It still just amazes me that we're even having to have this discussion. Voter ID is one of those issues where you step outside the Beltway bubble and you talk to everyday Americans, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and most people say the same thing. Yes, that makes sense. Show an ID to vote. You need one to board a plane. You need one to cash a check. You need one to pick up tickets at will call. So the idea that you would verify who you are before casting a ballot in a national election, most Americans say that's just common sense. And that's exactly what makes this latest development so interesting. Because now you've got Democrat Senator John Fetterman, for example, hardly a conservative voice, coming out and saying voter ID is not unreasonable. He seems to be breaking rank with his party. He even went a step further. Fetterman said that voter ID laws are not Jim Crow, which is something that the Democrat Party has been saying all along. Chucky Schumer, a number of times, Representative James Clyburn has said that it's Jim Crow. That's been one of the go-to talking points from the left for years now. And here you have a sitting Democrat senator flat out rejecting that argument. So at this point, you might be thinking, well, all right, maybe we're finally getting somewhere. Maybe this is one of those rare moments in Washington where both sides can come together, find some common ground, and actually pass something the American people overwhelmingly support. Not so fast. Because after saying all of that, Senator Fetterman still says he's not going to support the SAVE Act. In fact, Senator Fetterman detailed his rationale for refusing to support the SAVE Act in its current form, despite acknowledging that voter ID requirements are not unreasonable.
Senator, you just told the country recently that you cannot vote for the House-passed Save America Act in its current state. So a couple of weeks ago, you were okay with it. What changed?
Nothing changed. I've always said that I wasn't going to vote for SAVE Act. It's needlessly complicated, and now that's not. But what I have said, it's not Jim Crow and it's not extreme things. But mail-in voting is absolutely secure. Some of the best examples in the country are red states like Florida and Ohio. And I would remind people watching, Florida just passed the essential version of Save America, but they also said mail-in voting is absolutely secure, and that's going to be part of us going forward. What I've consistently said, that is not an unreasonable thing to provide basic ID to vote. 83% of Americans are okay with that, including 71% of Democrats are. Just what happened in Wisconsin less than a year ago, they put it in the Constitution to provide ID to vote, and that passed by 2-1 nearly. So that's not outrageous. And that's not what SAVE Act is. So if the Republicans have a real conversation, not one single Republican have ever reached out to me to get my input, anything. So that's part of a normal conversation, and now we are in the situation is another truth. Now the Democrats, we love the filibuster, but it wasn't that long ago that we all wanted to remove the filibuster. So, I will be the first person to admit that the filibuster is an important part of the Senate, and we can't ever allow the Senate to become a smaller version of a majority version of the House.
So let me just get this clear. You say it's not unreasonable to have ID to vote, to show citizenship to vote, but you still will not vote for the Save America Act in its current form.
That is not what Save America is. And they've had no no input from Democrats.
Now, as you heard, his argument is that the bill is needlessly complicated. And there have been some things that have been tacked in that probably should not have been. But at some point, and you heard him say that Republicans have not reached out to him. Why is that? Why has John Thune and Republican leadership in the Senate not sat down with John Fetterman knowing that he's a possible vote? Fetterman says it goes beyond just requiring ID. He says it doesn't properly account for mail-in voting. That seems to be one of his sticking points. And as you heard, he gave Florida and Ohio as examples of states where Republicans often hold up as gold standards for election integrity, and they embrace mail-in voting. So we don't know where this is headed. We know we got to have something. And maybe it was a mistake for Republicans to allow some of those other issues to be tacked in to this bill. But we got to get it done. One way or the other, we have to get this done because the American people are expecting election integrity, and they expect to have to present a ID in order to vote. GOP shots like Ozempic are everywhere right now, but here's the question. What happens when you stop? If you don't fix the reason your body gained weight in the first place, the weight comes back. Joey Hudson here at PhD Weight Loss. They don't just treat the weight as the problem. They treat it as a symptom of metabolic dysfunction, hormone imbalance, or inflammation. If you don't correct those, no shot or hack will ever last. PhD looks at you holistically to improve your health span, your energy, and your longevity, because losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off for life is another. Right now, when you call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson, you'll receive 2 free weeks in the program, and they'll cover the cost of your food. That's real results with zero guesswork. Again, mention Joey Hudson when you call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Visit them online at myphdweightloss.com. Stop chasing weight. Start fixing what actually is causing it. Call today. Be sure and tell them Joey Hudson sent you. Get you 2 free weeks in the program. 864-644-1900. By the way, one more thing before we move on from Senator Fetterman and his support or lack of support for the Save America Act. During some of the discussion over the past few days, the Pennsylvania Democrat appeared to suggest that his party would nuke the filibuster rule in the Senate when and if they win back control of the upper chamber. During a Fox News appearance, he reminded the panel that his party ran on ditching the 60-vote rule to advance legislation just a few years ago. He said, I'd like to remind everybody that wasn't but just a couple of years ago, every single Democrat, including myself, campaigned on this. So, look, I think they're telling us what they're going to do. If the Democrats regain control of the U.S. Senate in these midterm elections, the filibuster is going to be gone. And they're going to run roughshod over everything they want and prevent things that maybe the Republicans do want. I kind of go hot and cold on the filibuster because, I think it has played a role. And again, as I've said many times in the past, that's part of the legislative process. You have the House of Representatives on one side whose idea, the whole purpose is to represent the people. They get things that they move a little bit faster. But you've got the U.S. Senate sort of as a guardrail where they slow things down. They're more deliberative. Good, bad, or indifferent. It's worked fairly well at times. Of course, it's a tool for the minority because it will not allow a small majority like we have now to push things through that maybe are not completely thought through. So I don't know. I don't know if I would support eliminating the filibuster or not. What do you think? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of U.S. Congress, the House Oversight Chair James Comer yesterday issued a subpoena to Attorney General Pam Bondi, ordering her to testify over possible mismanagement of the investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and files related to him. Besides potential mismanagement, the committee is reviewing the circumstances and investigations surrounding Epstein's death, the extent of his sex trafficking rings, and how the federal government can combat them. Comer wrote in a letter to Bondi, lawmakers are also probing on how Epstein and his girlfriend, Ms. Maxwell, sought to curry favor and exercise influence to protect their illegal activities and any potential ethics rules violations of elected officials involved. Comer wrote, as Attorney General, You are directly responsible for overseeing the department's collection, review, and determinations regarding the release of files pursuant to the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and the committee therefore believes that you possess valuable insight into these efforts. He went on to say the committee may use the results of this investigation to inform legislative solutions to improve federal efforts to combat sex trafficking and reform the use of non-prosecution agreements and or plea agreements in sex crime investigation. Now, I got to say, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Are they really calling the Attorney General in to try to see what information she may have that could help prevent this from happening again in the future? Or is this going to turn into a witch hunt? Of course, released late last year with bipartisan support, by the way, the Epstein Files Transparency Act mandates that the Justice Department publicly release all non-classified records related to the investigation and prosecution of Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell. The subpoena was issued after 5 Republicans on the Oversight Committee joined Democrats to back Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina's motion earlier this month to compel Bondi to testify to Congress. Among Republicans supporting it, Representative Lauren Boebert, Tim Burkett, Michael Cloud, and Scott Perry. They all supported Representative Mace's March 4th motion. It also followed a very heated House Judiciary Committee hearing last month where Ms. Bondi sparred with lawmakers from both parties and declined to answer questions about how she handled the Epstein files. Remember that? Representative Thomas Massey asked Ms. Bondi why the Justice Department released unredacted files of victims' names but continued redacting the names of alleged Epstein co-conspirators. Massey asked, I have several questions for you. Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? It is a question that needs to be answered. Massey has been a frequent critic of the Trump administration and has pushed to pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act in Congress last year alongside Representative Ro Khanna. Now, Ms. Bondi has defended the Justice Department's handling of the files and has denied Democrats' allegations of obstructing congressional oversight. A Justice Department spokesperson said in a statement, this subpoena is completely unnecessary. Lawmakers have been invited to view the unredacted files for themselves at the Department of Justice, and the Attorney General has always made herself available to speak directly with members of Congress. She continues to have calls and meetings with members of Congress on the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which is why the department offered to brief the committee tomorrow. As always, we look forward to continuing to provide policymakers with the facts. Are they wasting time here? Is this the right thing to do, you think? The House Oversight Committee has also subpoenaed former President Bill Clinton and former First Lady Hillary Clinton, as well as other prominent names mentioned in the files. We saw how that worked out as the Clintons appeared before the committee. Actually, the committee went to upstate New York to question the Clintons. According to the report, both Ms. Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche will sit down for a private briefing with the committee's lawmakers on March the 18th, today, according to the statement. Last month, Democrats said they had the votes to subpoena Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick after he admitted during a February Senate hearing that he had visited Epstein's Caribbean island with his family in 2012. Now, of course, Mr. Lutnick has defended the trip, denied any knowledge of the convicted sex offender's crimes. The Commerce Secretary has not been personally accused of any wrongdoing in Epstein-related investigations, but like a lot of others who had some type of connection, some type of relationship with Epstein, it kind of makes you pause and think, doesn't it? Why someone like Howard Lutnick had an association with Jeffrey Epstein. Comer said that he recently communicated with Mr. Lutnick about a potential hearing date and was hoping to see both he and Bondi testify very soon. Well, looks like that's going to happen. Looks like it's going to happen very soon. We sometimes hear about these just crazy government programs. I mean, we've seen a lot of it happening in Minnesota as we've start to understand the fraud and abuse in Minneapolis with the daycare centers. And it's happening all over the country. It's like people sit around and they come up with creative ways to bilk the federal government, you and me, out of money. And boy, do they get very creative. Here's the latest. And talk about a magnet for illegal immigration. A progressive group appears to be advocating for illegal immigrants to be eligible for guaranteed income programs. Now, if the word gets out across South America and around the world that, hey, you go to America, they've got some guaranteed income programs, what do you think is going to happen? Here's the story. This organization is working behind the scenes of a guaranteed income program that's operating in the largest county in Illinois. They want economic protections for illegal immigrants. Community Change Action. It's the advocacy arm of an organization called Community Change, wants an immigrant inclusive democracy that will, quote, ensure that no person, regardless of immigration status, is excluded from basic social and economic protections. As economic freedom is a core objective of the organization, guaranteed income is a policy that it promotes. They believe that the government should provide a guaranteed income for certain people in certain classes. Now, I can promise you, you and I aren't going to qualify. We're not the right nationality. We're not the right color. And we're just normal people. The organization says on its website, a guaranteed income empowers workers and families with economic security. Well, I can't argue with that. I wish someone would guarantee me an income. They're right. If someone would guarantee me with an income, it would empower me for sure. I would have economic security. Wow. The site states, we're organizing towards a future where all of us, no matter what we look like or where we come from, have the freedom to live full, dignified lives. This is on the site over a link to its section on guaranteed income. Now, Fox News reports that the programs propose to use tax dollars to support these types of programs. And it's not just Illinois. As you will hear, it's happening in California and other areas as some of these governments, local governments, are just coming up with ways to tax their citizens and give it away. Listen to this report from Kayleigh McEnany and Fox News.
San Francisco Mayor London Breed's race-based guaranteed income program are facing pushback from conservative groups. They're suing the city, accusing it of racial discrimination with those initiatives. William LaJeunesse live on the West Coast with the details. William.
Controversial, Kayleigh, for two reasons. One, people receiving your tax dollars with no requirement they work. And secondly, should they be getting that money based solely on skin color? The lawsuit says San Francisco and California illegally give out millions each year to minorities and trans women based solely on race and gender identity through these three programs. The Black Economic Equity Project hands out $500 a month exclusively to young Black Bay Area residents. The Guaranteed Income Project for trans people, that pays $1,200 a month, provided you are Black, Indigenous, Latino, and transgender. And the Abundant Birth Project gives $1,000 a month solely to pregnant Black and Pacific Islander women.
Each of these three programs qualifies and disqualifies individuals from participation and benefits based on their race. That's what they do.
The Birth Project defends the aid, saying Black and Pacific Islander women have higher rates of premature birth.
This risk is primarily due to racism, both structural racism and the racism that birthing people and mothers experience when they're interacting with physicians and other medical providers.
Still, critics say it's illegal to exclude white and Latino women, especially those with higher risk of complication. Now, Mayor London Breed supports all three programs, though none require work. Example, the $1,200 stipend will be provided to participants so they may focus on their basic physical and mental health and wellness without worrying about income, according to Gift. So all three programs, Kayleigh, declined interviews. The mayor's office says the programs are legal, and they look forward to going to court.
William, thank you.
Can you believe that these types of programs even exist? And I hope that that lawsuit is successful to close it down in San Francisco. But back to Community Change, which is operating in Illinois. It has advocated for a permanent statewide guaranteed income program building on its success in Cook County, according to the website. The group helped establish the first permanent cash assistance program in the U.S., according to their documents. Its partner organization, Union for a Guaranteed Income, played a pivotal role in securing $7.5 million to launch their program. Earlier this month, Community Change participated in a meeting to gather feedback about finalizing the rules and the regulations around their proposed permanent income program. The first round of payments will reportedly begin in late summer or early fall of this year. Their full systems go. They're going to try to do this. Now, again, I don't know where all the money is going to come from, but somebody better wake up. Byron Hobbs is director of organizing for the Economic Freedom Team at Community Change. He said in a March 7th meeting, according to the Chicago Tribune, our long-term vision, our North Star, is to win a statewide permanent guaranteed income program for 100,000 eligible citizens of Illinois. Wow. He said this event is about educating folks on what guaranteed income is, but also bringing them into the fight as we continue to try and win guaranteed income programs throughout the entire state. Establishing a federal guaranteed income program is another goal of Community Change. So they're going to try it in Illinois, sort of as a test case. And if they're able to get it and it succeeds in Illinois, they're going to roll it out nationwide. They're going to consider their push for bold proposals for a guaranteed income at all levels of government, all across the country. Well, if we had a guaranteed income, what incentive is there for anybody to get out and work? Where's the money going to come from? Because nobody's going to be working to pay taxes to the federal government or to the state government or to your local government. So how does this work exactly? Now, Community Change says that guaranteed income is just one piece of their broader objective. In addition to advocating for cash handouts to illegal immigrants, Community Change also previously called to cut off funds from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they don't want ICE out there because ICE will be rounding up some of their potential customers and shipping them back. They cited the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy by federal agents. They also noted that they had participated in a news conference in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago, demanding that lawmakers vote to get ICE out of their states. Desmond Serrett, interim chief of programs at Community Change Action, said communities have bravely confronted these violent acts and attacks by ICE. So they just believe that illegal immigrants should be able to come into our country, should not have to be confronted by an ICE agent who might send them back to where they came from, and that we're supposed to pay them to be here. Be a pretty good gig if you could get it, wouldn't it? Well, evidently some people may get it. If this group has their way and if they're successful, you're going to have talk about a sanctuary state and talk about a magnet for illegals. Illinois will be that magnet. When word gets out that if you go to Illinois and you're illegal, you're black, you're trans, you're whatever, you're brown, you're going to get a guaranteed income. They're going to take good care of you up there. This interim chief, Desmond Serrett, went on to say they're shared groceries and medicine. They put their bodies on the line. They've closed their wallets to the businesses of ICE. The least our representatives could do is confront this administration, use their power of the purse, and cut off the flow of funds to ICE and CBP. They don't want these organizations to do their job. Evidently, they have been operating in a vacuum, and they missed the part of November 2024 when the American people resoundingly elected Donald Trump, and he told us what he's going to do. The president campaigned on the idea that he was going to support ICE, that he's going to support a roundup of illegals and deport them, that he was going to support the idea that our southern border is closed If you come to America, you got to do it legally. Wow. I don't understand how a hard-working American could even propose such an idea. Propose that our tax dollars, their tax dollars, because I'm assuming they work and pay taxes as well, would go towards a program like this. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Email's always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Things got a little more interesting this week in the race for South Carolina's governor when millionaire businessman Ron Reddy, he founded the Political Action Committee, Doge SC, but he borrowed the name, obviously, from the Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency, announced that he's running for governor. Reddy said in a news conference on Monday that he's self-funding his campaign and won't be taking any donations, big or small. He said, quote, money has corrupted politics and it has to stop. He bashed his opponents in the race as part of the ruling class due to their years of experience in politics and said he launched his campaign to give voters a better option. Reddy will be spending at least $1 million of his own money, he said, on a 2-week advertising blitz to kick off his campaign. He's at the start of the year, Reddy said he still wasn't sure if he wanted to make his run for elected office, but he told the South Carolina Daily Gazette this week that working on Doge SC, which has been pushing for change in how the state vets its judges, convinced him that the state has, quote, weaponized government against the citizens. Doge SC, which is not affiliated with the federal initiative, has been advocating for legislation that would give the governor total control over the panel that screens judicial candidates. Under this proposal, all 12 members of the Judicial Merit Selection Commission would be appointed by the governor. None would be appointed or could be legislators. Now, while the bill, which the House passed last month, would change the makeup of the screening panel, the legislature would continue to elect judges in a joint assembly. South Carolina is among 2 states where the legislature elects most judges. Reddy is perhaps best known for suing the state after he was told to remove an illegal seawall built to protect his beachfront home and fined $300,000. A judge said last week that the wall can stay up, at least temporarily, while litigation continues. Reddy entered the race on the first day of filing Monday, which the filing started the 16th and runs through March the 30th, and then on to the primaries in June. Reddy told the Daily Gazette, nothing makes him confident he can beat his 5 Republican opponents in the primary, but he's willing to invest a chunk of his fortune in the race anyway. He said, God has a plan for all of us. Our job is to try the best at what we do and do not worry about the outcome. The first debate held by the state Republican Party for candidates seeking its nomination for governor will be April the 1st at Newberry Opera House. The other Republicans in the race, of course, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, State Senator Josh Kimbrell, U.S. Representatives Nancy Mace and Ralph Norman, and State Attorney General Alan Wilson. The Democrats running for the job are State Representatives Jermaine Johnson and Charleston Attorney Mullins McLeod. So it's going to get interesting. If he spends the money like he says he is planning to, people love the idea that he's not going to take donations. People love the idea of politicians who can't be bought. So we'll see. Also in Columbia this week, South Carolina senators moved to fire interim director of the state's public health department by resuming a push from last year to oust the agency head over concerns about his response of COVID-19. Now, you've heard about this guy. He's been the topic of discussion for quite often. Edward Simmer is his name, Dr. Simmer. He's overseen the state health department since legislators split the huge agency in 2024. And despite sailing through the Senate for his initial confirmation in 2021, the Senate Medical Affairs Committee voted to reject Simmer's leadership last year. With no replacement lined up, Simmer has remained in the role as the interim since then. So an amendment that South Carolina senators added to a bill changes the confirmation process. Under the proposal, which was approved 40-0, Simmer would have to leave the job May the 14th, the last day of the legislative session. Another vote will send the legislation to the South Carolina House, where it's expected to pass over there as well. Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey, who proposed the amendment, told reporters the consensus in the Senate is that Dr. Simmer should probably find another job. Senators added the amendment by voice vote to a bill that would change how the confirmation process works, limits how long agency directors can serve in interim status without Senate approval, and removing 35 boards and commissions from those senators must approve. The Senate could have taken up Simmer's appointment directly, but even if the Senate rejected him, and this is how he has remained in the job so far, Dr. Simmer would remain in his position indefinitely. Meaning, basically, since Governor McMaster has supported him and has stood by him, by the way, that even though the Senate could vote not to support him and even potentially remove him from office until the governor appoints a replacement, he gets to remain as the interim under the current law. The law that created the agency allows Dr. Simmer to stay in place until he leaves or the governor chooses someone else for the job. Just that simple. So the Senate is changing that. The Senate is going to kind of do an end around and change how that's processed. The Senate has already left Simmer in charge as interim director for more than a year, Senator Massey said. He said, now we feel like we need to force it. Governor McMaster's office declined to comment, according to the South Carolina Daily Gazette. But again, the governor has stood behind this guy since he appointed him. Last year, Governor McMaster, in a statement posted to X, and this was after the state Senate had voted down Simmer's appointment, he said, I remain resolute in my support of Dr. Ed Simmer, and I'm hopeful that the full Senate will see through the falsehoods and mistruths being spread about his service to our state and nation. I don't know that I have ever seen someone that has created such turmoil in a nomination process than Dr. Edward Simmer. I've never met the man, but boy, has he created a lot of unrest within the state legislature. He's a psychiatrist, but yet he lacks the support of the Senate, which has a Republican supermajority. So this amendment this week would instruct Governor McMaster to choose a new interim agency head with the requirement that he choose someone other than Dr. Edward Simmer. So they're saying you got to find a replacement governor, but it can't be him. They were going to go ahead and plug that loophole in case the governor came back and said, okay, I'll appoint a director, and I want it to be Ed Simmer. Finding a replacement, according to some, is easier said than done. Before Governor McMaster chose Simmer, the health department went 8 months without a permanent director. And trying to find someone willing to lead the agency, knowing the incoming governor will almost certainly replace that person. Because, in other words, obviously we're going to elect a new governor in November. This is appointed by the governor. So anyone who takes the job right now will most likely be replaced when the new governor is sworn in next January. And nobody wants it. Nobody wants to be, especially if you're in this field and you already have a good job, you don't want to leave it for a few months. So we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. That's it for today's show. Tara's up next, followed by Mike Gallagher. And Mike's back in today. Bill Frady, Charlie James, I'm back again tomorrow at 5 a.m. and your first cup of coffee for Sunrise, Carolina. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.